So thank you for joining us this afternoon. This session is about creating and customizing business apps with PowerApps and Microsoft Flow. And of course, because we love Microsoft PowerApps and Microsoft Flow, no code required. Yay! So my name is Kathy Dew, and I am a Senior Product Marketing Manager for PowerApps and Flow. And I am joined by two great co-presenters up here.
Yes, my name is Audrey Gordon. I'm Program Manager on the PowerApps team, and happy to be here.
And I'm Trub Gott. I'm a managing partner for a Microsoft partner and an MVP. So you get a little bit of a real-world aspect to this as well.
We only have two mics, so we have to share and share alike. So what are we going to talk about a little bit? With Microsoft PowerApps and Flow, what we've kind of looked for is to fill the gap to allow business users to be able to measure, act, and automate quickly. And so it's giving us this kind of low-code, no-code experience where we can build mobile applications and automate processes in a quick, responsive manner so that we can do this in a very iterative approach. And you're going to hear more about this and see how we are working towards measure, act, and automate as Audrey gets up to start talking about what she's doing in her demo. So like I said, again, this is highlighting PowerApps and Microsoft Flow. So we're going to talk a little bit about what each of them are, just to give you a little bit of familiarity before you see how these are being used in the real world. So as we look at PowerApps, Microsoft PowerApps is a SaaS service for creating custom business apps across platforms. This means that I can connect to data, whether it be in Office 365, Dynamics 365, SQL. I can use external data sources. I can make use of our common data service, which is our common business model for putting our data together and integrate things together so that I can connect multiple sources together in one platform. I can build apps, forms, and workflows without writing code. And then I can publish these apps and automations instantly to the web or mobile and make them available to the people who need to interact with them instantly once I hit publish and share. So kind of being able to take this and have that quick iterative process to build apps and automate solutions. Again, building apps without writing code. What you'll see on the screen here is a screenshot of our PowerApps Studio. We have a desktop version available through the Windows Store, but we also have a web version that will work in any browser. So you can use PowerApps Studio, whether it be on the desktop or the web. And you can do things. This is a very common experience. We tried to make this familiar. It's kind of a combination of PowerPoint and Excel and how you kind of look at it from familiarity purposes. So you're going to build screens. Each screen is a different component of our app, much like in PowerPoint we build slides. We're going to connect to data. We're going to add actions and insights and galleries as we go through. And then we can even take advantage of components that are specific to the device. So being able to use things like GPS and camera so that you can take video or photos and integrate that with your apps right from taking advantage of those device controls. So it's kind of that full scope of building these business solutions. And again, you don't have to write code to make this happen. So what I always find really powerful when I'm talking to people about PowerApps and Microsoft Flow is to give you a few kind of common use case scenarios. Where do we hear people using these? How do we hear people using them in the real world today? So I give you a few examples, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you a couple. For human resources, we see a lot of people using these to do things like new employee orientation. So imagine your recruitment process where you have a lot of resumes that come through and you schedule interviews with people and you want to get feedback on those interviews. So being able to do that in a tablet or mobile app where they can walk into that interview, your interviewer, they can look at the resume, they can provide feedback, it can email the recruiter right back, all through this app that's been built without code. Then kind of moving down into a few different things. We at Microsoft have actually gone full in with PowerApps to the point that we have had our HR team building all new apps for our employees, for employee engagement. One of these that I like to talk about is here in Seattle, in Redmond, our campus. It's pretty large. So we have a shuttle system, or as I jokingly refer to it, Microsoft's own Uber. right? So you can book a shuttle to pick you up at one building, say like me, I work in building 2, to take me to building 136 if needed, right? So I can book a shuttle. We've built a Power App for that. So right from my phone, I can go and book a shuttle on my Power App to go across campus if needed. So kind of some of these scenarios. Another fun one that I heard people doing was actually a retail chain around Super Bowl. And Super Bowl is kind of one of those big beverage kind of components. So in supermarket chains, they erect these like crazy sculptures at different events in the US. And so they build like football stadiums out of Coca-Cola and Sprite and all of these things. So they had a Power App that was built where they went around and the field sales guys would take pictures to see if the installations of these things were done correctly in the different supermarket chains. So all different kinds of ways to use Power Apps. So then let's talk a little bit about Microsoft Flow. So Microsoft Flow is our way to automate business scenarios across platforms very easily, all visually, no code required. So this could be a simple A to B to C workflow. It could be a condition workflow, as you may have seen earlier. It can interact with the same number of systems that Power Apps can. So it gives us that kind of great branching of being able to automate processes across the world. So what makes up a flow? Flows are some of those things that are built as automated processes, triggers, and action. So what do we want to look for? What do we want to have happen to start this process? It could be a button click. It could be an activity when you get an email, when a new item is added. And then what do we want to have happen? What is that action? What do we want to have happen from that trigger? We have a large number of connections already in place that you can build these from, or you can write your own custom ones. So it makes it a very flexible system for doing these business process automations. Again, examples are some of the best ways to figure out how you might use these. So some different ways that you can use Microsoft Flow, some of the ways that we've seen people using it, is notifications. So one of the things that we all have is we have any number of systems where things happen, and throughout any day, I may need to interact with 5 or 6 of them, but I don't know about you. I don't always keep them all open, but I sometimes need to know when something happens. Say, I need to know when somebody posts something in Yammer that I need to respond to. Well, how do I do that? So I could write a Microsoft Flow that could watch for that Yammer action and send me an email or an alert. Okay? Approvals, right? How many of us do approvals, whether they be document approvals or I need approval on something, right? Do you know that in Office 365 right now, document approvals are using Microsoft Flow? That's a recent change and advancement, so that's just another example of how we can do this. Doing an approval, whether it be on a document, an item, an action, in any number of systems could be built together. Another one that I see people doing a lot is collecting data. So using Microsoft Flow to collect data from one place and put it into another so that that system can be updated, whether that's Dynamics or Twitter or Salesforce or putting that data into Power BI, all of these different types of scenarios where I'm collecting data from one source and pushing it to another. Okay. So when I talk about the number of connections that we have, there's a large number of connections that are available within Microsoft Flow and Power Apps right now. This is just a small sampling of the connectors that are available now. New services and connectors are being added every week. I stopped putting an iterative number on these slides because they were outgrowing every week. I was having to change it. So go explore, see if what you need is already there. If not, don't forget that you can always add your own custom connectors to proprietary systems if needed. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Audrey, and we're going to jump right into demo mode because that's what we're all really excited to see. So Audrey, please come join us.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. So all that stuff that Kathy just told you, I'm going to make it real right now. Because I want you to think about all the different complex systems that you guys work with every day in your business environment. These are systems that require a lot of tactical activity, right? This guy has to create this thing, and this girl has to go update it, and then eventually we get it done, right? Well, if we take advantage of the business application platform, we can automate quite a deal of what we do in these complex processes. So I'm going to set the stage for one of them right now. This is a complex process. This Contoso team is responding to sales associates' requests for new projects. Now, Contoso is a big enterprise, so it's got to keep its eye on all the projects in the queue. It's got to understand how the portfolio of all these projects work and if they are getting their real return on the investment they need based on business drivers. So does anybody know what Contoso might be using for this purpose? Portfolio project management. Put you on the line. If you get this answer, I got some swag for you. Who knows what Contoso can use for portfolio project management?
Here.
I heard a bunch of them, okay? Somebody said project server, someone said project online, maybe somebody thought PWA, because that's what I'm talking about, right? Did you guys know PowerApps can connect to that? Now, as we move from the sales associates are going to submit a request. The portfolio manager has to approve that request in PWA. Once he approves it, there has to be a project built. There has to be schedule made, right? I bet you're going to guess what I'm going to do with that, because I'm not going to have any person build that project. And no person is going to build that schedule. The Scrum Master gets involved because what we've been talking about so far is executive level stuff. The big guys need to look at the whole picture. But the guys that are executing, they're agile teams. And they appreciate drag and drop systems that are easy to use, that don't require a lot of education to get started. What is a great agile tool that we could use in Office 365 for the execution team? That's a good one. I didn't use it today. Think even easier. Planner. Did you know that PowerApps connects to Planner? All right, so once we get the Scrum Master on board, he's going to create those cards. People are going to sign up on those cards. They're going to update those cards, and the project will be delivered. Now, imagine if I could do all the project creation, all the schedule creation, all the card creation without a single human being. Just a click of the button approve. I'd like to show you that. So I'm going to first imagine on my head the sales associate hat. I'm going to wear a lot of hats today. And I bet a lot of you wear a lot of hats in real life. But I want you to kind of tell the different roles I'm playing. So I've got my sales associate's hat on, and I'm opening up a Power App right on my phone, wherever I am. Maybe I'm dealing with some other customers. And in this app, I'm going to be able to see any other requests that I've made. But I'm going to, right now, just open up a brand new request. And I'm just going to name this Amazing Project. And of course, I can put more automation in this to make typical descriptions work. But just for this demo, I'm just going to say this is an amazing project, because it is. And then this is the magic behind the scenes. I'm selecting a department and an enterprise project type. Based on the project type that I pick, the schedule can therefore be built, because we already know how to deploy these things. We've been doing it 100 times, so we know what we need to do. So we can just have it go look up the task needed for that project and make that. Okay, so now I'm going to click that little checkbox at the top. You'll see that that project is now going to show at the top of my pending items. And as a sales associate, I'm going to go ahead and go meet my next customer. Okay? So I'm going to turn off my sales associate hat, and I'm going to put on my, what do you call this, portfolio manager hat. right? Because now I am going to respond to that request. I'm also going to open up Planner for you so you can see what's there. I'm going to open up PWA so you can see what's there. So here in PWA, as you can tell, we chose Amazing Project. So it would be at the top, right? And it is not there right now. And I'll even prove that. I'll refresh so that we can see it's not there, right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go right back to the phone, as long as that switches over. And you will see that I have a notification as a portfolio manager to approve this project. This notification appears in my email as well as on my device, okay? But again, I might be out and about. Let me go ahead and get that project approved. And each time I approve, I just approve and then I press confirm in the top. Now, in the olden days, I would have to go set that project up, right? I'd have to go get all my PMs together. Hey, PMs, let's get those tasks in there, and why don't we get that schedule going so we can figure out how the work backward is going to happen. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time talking to people and getting them going. But here's an example of where Flow is really our best friend. Flow goes into the back end of what we've done, and I just want to show you how this is done. I'm going to the site contents right here. And when I filled in that Power App, what I was actually doing was making a new entry in a list on the Project Online site called Project Request Form, PRF. And you see the project is right there that I just created and was just created at 1:45 p.m., okay? Now, in the back end, Flow goes and notice, hey, we got a new project triggered in SharePoint. And it is for SharePoint on premises. So I'm going to go look up what tasks are needed for SharePoint on-premise projects. And guess what? This is a very simple SharePoint list where I have plugged in what are required for this type of project, what the duration for these tasks are, and what the customer ID is, right? And so the customer ID will be dynamically done by the customer app, which we're not going to go into today. But if you like this stuff, please get in touch with me because I'll help you do this yourself, okay? This is not hard. And none of this has any code. So I'm going to go back to the project list. And notice we have Amazing Project at the top. And notice if I click on Amazing Project, I have the schedule. Now, I didn't do that. Nobody in this room did that. Flow did that. Can I hear something for Flow? All right, that is truly amazing to me. The first time I saw this possibility, it blew my mind. And how you configure that SharePoint list is what makes the difference. But guess what? All right, now, normally, and I'm going to show you this, normally I would send the Scrum Master what's called a send an email with options email. And it would look like this. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't do that here because email can take up to 3 to 5 minutes to come through. I don't want to waste your time. In real life, who needs an email in less than 3 minutes? But for the demo, it kind of matters. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, the email to the Scrum Master. Basically, he's asked to make a decision. Do you want planner cards, or do you want to decline this project? And again, Flow in the back end is waiting to hear what the Scrum Master says. Now, I removed this so that the cards are automatically recreated to save time. So let's go look at those cards. I'm going to go to Planner, and notice right here, Amazing Project already has the cards for Planner. Are you like blown away or what? Think about what you can do. Think about it. This is huge. We're talking about automation without a single line of code that can expedite your projects. What this means is that sales associates gets this deliverable faster because we're not wasting our time in tactical operations. Now, I'll show you a couple other things here. So I'm just going to go to my, just kind of look and show you what's happened here. At the end of the process, it kind of tells you that, you know, your stuff is done, basically. And you can choose how you separate this. You can choose different stages of the project and execute them that way. In this case, I just added a link to the app. I could have been more creative and added a picture of the app that you click on. Didn't think about it until right now, actually. And what's happening here is now I have the app for the people executing against the project, right? So this app is connecting to Planner, and I can just click on whichever plan that I might be related to, because it's only going to show me mine. Unlike the Planner app that we get out of the box with Office 365, this one is only going to show me what relates to me. It gets rid of any other noise, right? And then if I'm done with the project, I click this Done button, and Planner will actually close that task card for me. So, and it will have to refresh before this kicks back in sometimes. But when I look at that kind of interactivity that's done online live for me, and you can see the times, we didn't cheat on this. This is live. So within seconds, you have your project portfolio. You also have your tasks in Planner. And it's easy. I want to show you I showed you how the SharePoint site's built out, right? So with the SharePoint site, you just have to have your intake form, whatever that form is, and you configure it to have your if-then conditions. If it's this department, then look here for the list of tasks, and you set up your task list up here. That's how I did it. There's a number of ways you could do this. You could connect to SQL lists. You could connect to any other thing, too. That's the power of PowerApps. And then after you've done that, then you go to Flow. Let's kind of give you a peek at the Flow, because it's not a complicated flow. You'll be surprised. I'm going to go into Flow here. And you'll see it's the project and planner automation. And if I hit this edit button, you'll see that when a new item is created, and basically, I'll open it up in update mode here. It wants to know when a new item, you just put in the path to your site and the name of the list, which it will actually go and query the list. Then I started an approval. This approval here is what I'm sending to that portfolio manager. And I just drag and drop these dynamic fields in there because they're provided by Flow as I'm working. Then I say, okay, the condition, if they approve, this is the yes, and here's the no, right? So the no is pretty easy. Your project is denied. But there's some stuff in the yes. We're going to start with the switch case. Now, a switch case is a way of saying, if it's this type of project, then do that. If it's another, then do something else. What developers spend time looping through things like that, right? We do it with no code whatsoever. It goes ahead and gets the profile of the person. It creates the new SharePoint project. Again, we're dragging and dropping dynamic fields through here. It goes and gets the list that has the tasks. It creates the project, and it creates the schedule. The hardest part of this flow, to be very honest with you, is the date, because we're doing a Gantt chart. So we're working backward. So there's a calculation that says whatever the latest delivery date is that the sales associate used, I want you to subtract the duration so I can figure out when that should start. That's the hardest part of this, and I can definitely help you get to some blogs to help you do that. And then the rest of it is all drag and drop. I mean, this is the easiest thing in the world to do. You could do this flow in an hour and you'd be done, okay? What I love about it, too, is you get all your evidence of your runs, what succeeded, what failed. It can help you manage, any mistakes you make, because sometimes we make mistakes. Maybe we picked the wrong list or whatever you might do wrong. It will help us work through that. So with that said, this is not the end of the story. We've got our project working really well. We've got our execution team out executing, right? And I showed you what their app looks like. I will show you the portfolio app as well. So let me just show you that one. So in addition to having an app and I'll show you that in the browser. I could show you on the phone, but it might be too small to see. I'm going to show you the Portfolio Manager's app. And that is it's kind of a keep up to speed as to what's going on app. So that as a portfolio manager, I know. This is connected to Project Online, and it will show the portfolio manager and I'm going into edit mode, but I'll play it, all of the portfolio of projects and all of their tasks, and even the Power BI tile. So again, you've heard throughout this process that we can now embed Power BI into our apps. So he can embed anything he wants from the Power BI, which I'm not going to talk about too much, but Treb is going to be the next person to show you our Power BI implementation on top of this. And of course, anything important to the portfolio manager, we would want to embed at the top so that he can see any red flags quickly. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Treb so you can see the Power BI piece of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So when Audrey first described this scenario to me of what she was trying to do, I was amazed. And the reason for that was that I had actually been at a client site where they had this exact scenario. Salesperson got a request from their client, needed to have a project created, but unfortunately lost the request because they spent 2 days in travel and other meetings, and it just got lost in the shuffle. And they wanted a way to automate this better. So when we went through the process of developing this, it's like, man, this is amazing. In a very short amount of time, we don't lose the request. This could mean real money to companies. But when we look beyond that, how many of you, and I want you to really raise your hands, don't need reporting? Come on, let's see them. That's what I thought. Everyone needs reporting. And the thing is, as we get the capabilities to tie these individual systems together, to automate things that we've never been able to automate before, we wind up with more systems we have to aggregate and integrate. And that is being done now at the BI level. So instead of it being a transaction issue, it's a BI issue. Now, one of the things that Microsoft has done to help us with this is they have adopted an industry standard which is known as OData. So OData allows you to connect to cloud services and on-prem services. So if you're using SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013, SharePoint 2016, or online, for example, all use OData. Project Online uses OData. The new Graph uses OData. So if you haven't been using OData, it's a great way to future-proof your reporting. And the way that looks, so as we switch over here, I'm going to switch over to my machine as it goes over. So here's Project Center. So here's the amazing project that was created. And we brought this data in. So what we have here, there is a commercial product that we were pulling into this to show it to you. And this is called Marquee. And basically what this does, it allows you to see the kind of rich story you can tell around this data. So in this case, we have Amazing Project. This is our executive overview where they can see what's going on. They can get breakdowns of cost, work by portfolio, whatever they care about. This is all customizable. Because again, the focus is bring the data together into a data model, because it's really more important to talk about the data model than anything else. What are we going to talk about? What questions are we going to answer? And can we bring the data in using OData or any of the other connectors? And then we create the rich visualizations over it. And then we can do stuff like, if we wanted to do a portfolio detail, we can get more in depth with that. So we can actually link out directly to the PWA site, go directly to it. So now we're talking about integrating BI into our workflow processes. It's not just something you look at. It's a team member. It's part of what we do. And then we start to create other pivots around this. So we've got an overall workflow. The number one question most people are trying to answer these days is, do I have capacity to do what I'm being asked to do? And this is something that when we start bringing in all these processes, we can get an idea of where the activities lie and how things are progressing. And so with this, using the new matrix and the new tables that Power BI has, we can actually drill in. We can filter based on whatever we're looking at here. We can see immediately where we have deficits. So I know right here that the marketing manager position is a problem, but I have some others that are over-allocated. And then we could pull in stuff like Cortana and say, show me the hiring report. If I can spell today, it'd be dangerous. Oh, no, she's asking to show the numbers here. But we do have a hiring report and a headcount report. Oh, that's what it was. So show me the headcount report. Helps to use the right name. There we go. Oh. And she would bring that up and show it right here to you. So again, information at your fingertips. Now, we actually went out and tested the amount of time it takes to use Cortana in Q&A. And what we found was, if you go through the UI to look up these answers, you're in the minute to a minute and a half time frame for each time you execute the action. When you use Cortana and Q&A, you're in some cases down to 10 seconds. So again, I can come back up here. Let me go to my dashboards. And let's see, down here. And so if I had a question, so say I'm an executive, and I want to see how much money we're spending, I can say, total cost of new product development projects, basically. And what it's doing behind the scenes here is actually doing the aggregation for me. So again, very quick access to data, very quick access to the questions that I need to, or answers to the questions I need to answer. Now, how did we do this? Well, if you look at the model that was generated, the commercial model, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's being captured in here. But all of this is predicated on going to new source. And in this case, we're using the OData connection, which if you click Other, it's the third option here. And basically what we do here when we connect to that is we fill in a URL. There's no ports to open. There's no getting IT involved to have to change the firewall. It works through HTTPS. It's very easy to use. And so if I copy in my URL here, what it will then show me is a list of all of the tables that I can bring in from the data source. Now, given project is a very rich data source, there are 37 entities, 807 columns of data. It's a bit much to dig through. But again, if I'm pulling this from SharePoint or the Common Data Service, it's well documented, it's very easy to work with. And so here, if I really wanted to pull in all of my projects, I can simply click Projects, see the preview, and then go from there. Now, the other thing that you can do with Power BI that really doesn't involve a lot of code, and hopefully you've seen this in the sessions that you've been through over today and yesterday, is that we really capture 3 types of data when we're doing reporting with Power BI. The first one is we capture the data itself. This is the stuff that's in the data source. And we can get to that very easily because there it is. The second thing we capture is what I call the state data. Is it late? Is it overprescribed? Is it something? Those are the questions that we ask as business people that we're trying to answer. And if you've gone through any of the M or the DAX sessions, you've seen how we can extend the data set to capture that state data. The third thing we capture is really the metadata around the data. Is this location data? Is this web data? Is this an image URL? And this is where we're classifying the type of data to tell Power BI how to use it. So the thing is, if you take something like PowerApps, Flow, Power BI, and you do those 3 things, you have an incredibly rich story to tell. And that's leagues beyond where we've been years past. And now we can do this fairly quickly. I mean, I've seen projects like this go 2 or 3 days. All of a sudden, things we've never could do before, we can now do. So as we dig into Power BI here, and again, this has several different things, but it gives you an idea of how you can customize this. And now we have things with Q&A that you've seen here. You can do it, so I can look at this on mobile. I can look at this with alerts. I can even tie Flow now to my dashboard to kick off other actions. So we have cases where we have self-escalating dashboards. For example, if you were connecting to ServiceNow and you've got more than X number of high-priority tickets that come in at a given moment, what do? Do you escalate? Do you know to escalate? The thing is, you could do this with Power BI very quickly, hook it to those systems, knock it out. You're ahead of the game. You're faster than your competition. And in today's environment with most large organizations, we have more than 500 different data sources on average that we're trying to pull data in from. So, amazing stuff. Yeah.
So, just to kind of bring this together in a pile, so think about PowerApps, Flow, and Power BI together as a family of tools that we use to expedite and to facilitate business operations. Even the complex ones that we've brought out today, these applications are able to handle it. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out with what we did with PowerApps and Flow is that we used no code whatsoever for that automation. We used the connections. If you have not started using connections, please do, because these connectors help us incorporate more than one data source into our files. There was one thing I wanted to show you just on the phone real quick. You can have many operations inside of one app. So I'm going to open up that Portfolio Manager's app again. And I just want to point out on his app, he has integrated other data sources for customer information, in addition to the Power BI, which, by the way, in Power Apps will be added by adding a URL from Power BI. There won't be any OData needed for that, right? So I'm going to kind of, after I look at my tasks, for instance, I want to review who this customer is. I can click on the little customer icon here. I'm noticing I'm having a little bit of slowness, but I think we're going to be good. And here is my customer. This customer could be in a CRM, in Dynamics. It could be in SharePoint. It could be anywhere. All I need is an ID number in that data that matches the ID number that I have in SharePoint or Project Online, and I perform a formula-based query, not a code-based query, that goes and looks up the customer information. Notice that if I click on this button, I can also launch myself back into, say, SharePoint to look at the data, or Dynamics to look at the data, and I can configure even launch statements that will open up email with pre-configured subject lines and email addresses. So you're bringing this stuff together to facilitate action. Power Apps is about action. Flow, on the other hand, you're using it to automate. It's about keeping automation. And then finally, Power BI is our measurement tool. How do we measure what we've done, what we are? And let's get to some forecasting and machine learning, and let's be able to predict. So to sum it all up, I love the way she brought this slide up for me. Thank you, Kathy. The measure, act, and automate. Power Apps is our intake vehicle. That's what we use so that the sales associates would be able to submit requests and portfolio managers were able to approve them, right? Then we leverage Flow when we needed to automate the project creation or the task assignments, which we did based on business logic that we defined easily in SharePoint lists. And we can extend this beyond project and planner. We can go into Trello the same way, into VSO. Any project management tool where there's a connector, you non-coders can do this right away. Power BI is going to be our measuring tool. That's what's going to help the portfolio manager recognize trends across the business and to be able to be sure that the business drivers are being respected and we're doing the right projects. Right? We're not getting the right projects deprioritized. And then finally, all the stakeholders will be able to leverage Project Online, SharePoint, and these apps wherever they are. Whether they're, and you guys remember, we just released offline access. So wherever they are, whenever they want, they can access this data and act. So these are some powerful tools, and I'd like to plead with you today to come into our Power Apps community as soon as you can. PowerApps.com will resolve to our community and learn how you can do this tomorrow. Okay, I beg you, try it out. You'll be passionate about it like I am.
Or you can come to the hall floor where the meals are. I have one. You have one? And we have a community section over there, community lounge. We're giving out prizes, and you can use our app that you've seen. You can come visit us there. We can get you signed up right there as well. So I want to talk a little bit about how do I get started with this. You've seen a lot of great things around Power Apps and Flow, hopefully throughout Data Insight Summit here. And maybe you're wondering, do I have this? How do I get it? I want to try it out. Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that means and how do I get it. So right now, whoa, I got really loud there for a second. Right now, if you have an Office 365 subscription or a Dynamics 365 subscription, guess what? You most likely already have access to Power Apps and Microsoft Flow. It's exciting, right? You can go use it now. So we have a seated plan that's in there, and you can see some of what is included in those plans right there. But what if maybe I want to have connections to what we call some of our premium services? I need to connect to Salesforce. I need to have more flow quota. I need to send more flows every month. What do I need to do? We have 2 premium plans available as well. Our PowerApps P1 plan is our user plan. That's what we want people to use, these PowerApps that have those premium connections. And then we have our PowerApps P2 plan. This is our maker or creator plan. If you want to administer the Common Data Service, I want to build an app using one of those premium connectors like Salesforce. I want to do that, I'm going to need a P2 license. Now here's the great news, is that our licensing model is a mix and match license, right? So that means I don't have to go out and buy P2 for everyone in my organization. Right? I need to buy P2 licenses for the people that are creating and managing those apps. I need to buy P1 licenses for the people that are using those apps. And then everyone else will be covered by what they already have included in their Office 365 and Dynamics 365 subscriptions. It's a mix and match component, which makes it really great. Now, we do realize that this is a little confusing. We do have explanations out on our website, as well as any one of the PowerApps or Microsoft Flow team are always happy to have conversations around pricing to help explain this and give you a little bit more detail about how it works. That's not all. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming for the second half of the calendar year for PowerApps and Flow. So we're still working on getting our availability in more languages, more geographies. We're still working on our government cloud and sovereign cloud, so Germany cloud. Darshan's down here like covering his face. He really doesn't want me to talk about some of these, I think. It is there, but yes, it is there. General availability is there. App Source integration. We're going to continue expanding our App Source integration so that you can build apps and share them out, so that as a partner or an ISV, you can even build apps and sell them in App Source, right? So we're going to continue to evolve our App Source integration story as the story evolves around PowerApps and our business application platform. Enhanced in-context support for Dynamics 365. So much like in Office 365 and SharePoint Online, where you see PowerApps and Flow embedded in those list experiences, more of that in-context support for Dynamics 365. We want you to be able to have pro developer extensibility and do things like use Azure Functions seamlessly. Right now, we've been upgrading this process steadily over the last 3 months, and it's getting better and easier to do to extend this with it. Support for attachments in SharePoint Online. We want to be able to continue to advance our application lifecycle management story, ALM, with solution packages and how you're going to manage that. Continues with the custom visuals for Power BI, for PowerApps. The same, some of the dynamic layout, continued enhancements around our offline support. We did have offline support announced last month for the first time, which is great. That was one that we heard a lot of people asking for repeatedly. We're really excited to give that. We also are going to be up here for the next 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Audrey and Treb and myself, and Darshan is here if I need to pull him up to answer questions. And we would love to answer some questions for you. There are microphones in the room for the next 7 minutes. We'll do them from the microphone. And then beyond that, we'll be around in the community areas and outside to answer questions for the rest of the session. Thank you so much.